We have started recording. All right, awesome. So to kick it off, we're first going to talk about the new app pack process. So the overall theme for today is talking about bringing new VISTA members on board. So kind of more of the logistical perspective through the process of enrolling them, and then also getting that member started at your project and oriented to your project. So first we're going to talk about the logistical side of things, going through the new app pack process. We really see that this breaks down into multiple phases and steps. Throughout this process, sometimes some of the responsibilities are going to be on you guys as the sponsor. Some of them are going to be on us as the state office, and some of them are going to be on the VISTA member. And so we really wanted to break this down. Some of this might be a refresher for you guys, but really wanted to break this down so everybody had a clear understanding of, what are the steps, who has to do what. That way we can keep things moving along smoothly during the recruitment process for all of you. So the main phases really are planning, then recruitment, selecting the VISTAs, submitting the app pack, going through selection, approval, and enrollment, and then the completion of my AmeriCorps enrollment forms, and then next steps. So we'll go through each of those in a little bit more detail. On this first slide, we've got the plan and recruit phase. So first, it's really important to discuss your project plan with your program officer. Hopefully give us a call well before recruitment. Let's talk about where the project's going, what you guys are moving forward to, what the next year is looking like as you're preparing for that, bringing on your next VISTA members. After that, discuss your recruitment plan with us. It's important to think about early on, how many folks are you looking to bring on the next PSO? Are some positions continuing into a second and third year? Are some positions that were maybe a year 3 rolling off and you're no longer going to be re-recruiting for them? It's really great that we talk about all that stuff up early on so we're all on the same page. Then 90 days before the app pack deadline, so that's the deadline we send out to you guys saying, in order to enroll somebody for November's PSO, you need to have the app pack to us by this date. So 90 days before that, we're going to be asking that everybody submits their VADs in eGrants for those positions. Now, I know this is a little bit different than what we may have done in the past, but we want to do this really early on with you guys so that we can help provide support and feedback on those VADs well before we hit the deadlines for placement. And that way we're all on the same page on what the positions are going to do. So that's really key. I know you've heard from us here at the state office that the VADs are being looked at a little bit closer this year on the national level. And so we just really want to make sure that they are strong. And we've got a checklist that we actually have to go through and make sure everything on that checklist is satisfied before we can approve a VAD. So to have all of that well in advance really helps us help you guys get to that point. That way nothing bottlenecks through the process. Then the VAD really is going to inform your next step. So once you've got a strong VAD in there, that's when you're going to go to the second step after that and look at putting together the service opportunity listing in eGrants. So that's when you go into eGrants and draft what's this position going to do, what are the member duties, the service description, the benefits, the application timeline. When you guys are doing that, that's the posting that goes on to the My AmeriCorps portal, and that's where folks apply. So we're going to ask that folks put service opportunity listings together 60 days before the app pack deadline. So at least 60 days. If you want to start recruiting earlier, that's awesome. But at least 60 days. That way you've got a nice, healthy amount of weeks there to be promoting your position, interviewing and reviewing candidates, and finding a strong competitive candidate for your project. And really, the reason we want the VAD first is that's going to inform your service opportunity listing. You can think of that as more of like your narrative version. So it should look fairly similar to the VAD, but more in narrative form. We should look at the VAD and say, oh, the VISTA member is going to do these 3 objectives and these kinds of activities. And then we should see pretty similar language in the service opportunity listing. After that, you guys are into the recruitment phase. So really, as you guys know, it's helpful to promote the opportunity widely. You can do that through a lot of different websites, through your local networks, throughout the community. And then you're going to be reviewing applications, interviewing candidates, and then hopefully eventually offering the position. When that candidate says that they want to accept the position, that's what takes us on to the next step here, which is the selection phase. So once a candidate says they're going to accept your offer, you're going to do the following. You're going to go into eGrants and you're going to fill out the sponsor recommendation tab. That's how you start the process in the portal of selecting that application and that member. When you're doing that, you're going to choose the VAD that aligns with that project. So if you have a VISTA member that's building volunteer capacity at your organization, another VISTA member that's raising awareness around food security issues in your community, you're going to have two different VADs for them. When you select that member, you're going to want to make sure you're selecting the VAD for that position that member has accepted. So that's what's going to assign the VAD in the system. If that VAD hasn't been submitted or approved yet, you're not going to see it in your drop-down menu. So again, that's why we do that so early on. As a reminder, when you're selecting folks, you're going to need to make sure 2 references are completed for that application. If that VISTA member's references haven't been completed yet, the system's not going to let you select them. So please make sure, follow up with your candidates if they're still pending, have them go and contact their references and get those completed so that you've got 2 references in the system. We recommend after you select them, you'll go through, fill out the form, say select once you've gotten all that done. Follow up with the candidates afterwards and let them know. eGrants will send them an automated message, but oftentimes those end up in folks' spam filters, or they don't understand what happened because it's not the most flavorful email. It's just real quick to the point. So I really encourage folks, give that candidate a call, send them a customized email from your program, let them know that you've selected them, and what they need to do is go in and accept that selection in the portal. What that's going to do is kick them into our work basket. Then what you need to do is complete the app pack. And so what the app pack is going to include is the new Wisconsin VISTA enrollment form. It's going to include a copy of your on-site orientation and training plan for the project. It's going to include a copy of the site supervisor job description. And so what we're looking for there is the individual who's going to be spending their day-to-day supporting and managing the VISTA member. So not necessarily always the project director, but the person who's working directly with the VISTA. There's just a copy of their position description or job description. If you've got multiple sites in your program, especially those with different organizations, and you arrange memorandums of agreement with those organizations, we would like a copy of that. If all your VISTAs are placed within your own organization and you guys don't have MOAs for those sites, then you wouldn't be required to attach that. If you have a tribal project, we do ask that it comes with a tribal resolution or a letter of support from the council. And then if that VISTA member does self-disclose criminal history background on their application, you can see that when you're looking at the application in the criminal history tab, then we ask you to attach the criminal history justification form along with the app pack. And that is just going to kind of give the explanation around, why you guys want to select this member. Maybe they disclosed something 10 years ago. So you're saying, it's not an issue with you guys because of the time, or it's not an issue because of your agency policies, or because you've seen this demonstrated pattern of behavior in the interviews and on the resume that you feel like negate that issue. So we ask that you attach those items to the app packet and send that to us by email no later than close of business on the deadline day. Ideally, we encourage folks to send this as you're recruiting and selecting members throughout the process. So you don't have to wait till the deadline day to send us this. If you select a member on Thursday, send us the pack on Thursday. And the sooner that member accepts the selection in the portal, the sooner we have both of these items, their application in our work basket and the app pack, the sooner we can start the process on our end of enrolling the candidate. So we'll go to the next slide, the approval and enrollment phase. So what's happening here is now we've gotten everything from you guys. We've gotten their application, we've gotten the app pack, and what we're doing is we go through a citizenship verification and social security number verification process. We have to do a check on the NSOPW, a sex offender check for every candidate before we can approve them for service. And then we send those materials, once they've passed those checks, onto the VISTA member support unit. And the VISTA member support unit will enroll that VISTA member in PSO and will unlock their MyAmeriCorps enrollment forms. So once that happens, we'll notify you guys as the sponsor that their forms are that they're enrolled in PSO and their forms are ready to be completed. And then we ask that you guys notify the VISTA member to complete those forms and to do it within 3 days. So what are the MyAmeriCorps forms, you guys might be asking? This next slide gives you a quick rundown of what's there. There's a travel form that's for travel to PSO or for relocation travel. There's the V81 form, which is the use of a personal vehicle or public transportation form. There's the direct deposit sign-up form, the W4. The designation of beneficiary, that's the form that if a VISTA member were to pass away, what happens to their last living allowance payment. There's the end of service benefits election form, so if they want to choose the Ed Award or the cash award, and then whether or not they want to elect in the life insurance program. So really what's important for you guys to recognize with these forms is that they're pretty key. They relate to getting that member signed up for service, relate to their living allowance, their benefits, and their travel. So the sooner the members complete these forms, the easier it is for the VMSU to review their travel requests and get their travel approved and get them signed up for PSO. So what are the next steps? After the members, as they start completing their forms, you guys are going to see some notifications come through in your eGrants account that those forms have been completed. So many of you are probably already familiar with that. You're not going to see them all, but the ones you're going to see most likely are the V81 form, and you'll see a notification that they've selected their end of service benefit. So that's a nice indication to know like whether or not your candidates are completing their forms, is you'll at least see those two come through. If you guys ever have questions about whether or not folks have finished their forms or you haven't heard anything from them for a couple of days, you can always give Nicole or I a call and we can check on that for you guys. But that's a good notification. When the V81 comes through, there is going to be a step that you guys need to take. So you'll need to review that form and make sure the information the VISTA members put in there is correct. What you're looking for, you'll go into your VISTA work basket when you log into eGrants, and there'll be a section for the V81 forms. You want to make sure that it's only service-related transportation that VISTA member is referring to. So for example, they might write, I will be using my personal vehicle to travel to community meetings and to events for work. If they include things like, I'll be using my personal vehicle to travel to community meetings, events for work, to do my grocery shopping, and to go to the movies on the weekend, then you'll need to reject that form and send it back to them and ask them to fill it out again. I would encourage when you send a notification or contact the members to complete their forms, give them a heads up in the beginning that when they complete the V81 form, they should only be referencing service-related transportation. So things related to their project, excluding daily commute. Even if they're not using a personal vehicle, but they are going to be using public transit, they still do need to fill out that form. So if they ask you that question, please ask them to fill it out. After that, it comes to our work basket, and we'll look through it. If it does have non-service related transportation stuff in it, we will return it back to you guys. So just as a heads up, please check it before you send it to us. As we process paperwork and enrollment forms, the VMSU will be notifying VISTAs regarding if they are relocating, regarding their relocation path of their approved path of relocation. So it's important to be letting candidates know throughout this process that they shouldn't plan any relocation until they've received the written approval from the VMSU. And that should come by email to the candidates. no later than 2 weeks prior to PSO, the VISTA Member Support Unit and AFIA. AFIA is the travel company that books the itineraries for VISTA members. They should send them their itineraries, and approximately 2 weeks prior to PSO, the state office will be hosting a pre-PSO call with all new VISTAs and site supervisors, and that call is mandatory. So if PSO is happening on November 3rd, about 2 weeks prior to that, we'll be scheduling a call for all new VISTA members and their site supervisors. All right, so we're going to take a little bit of a closer look at the new spreadsheet. Many of you probably already been looking at this because India sent it out. I know you guys are actively recruiting now. So we reorganized some of the information from the old app pack and put it into a spreadsheet. If you guys are asking, well, why did we do that? One of the main reasons is the enrollment paperwork we send on is in spreadsheet format. So it's a lot easier and allows us to move the process along quicker to get the stuff in a spreadsheet from you guys. So we'll look a little bit closer at the spreadsheet. Many of you probably noticed in the bottom left-hand corner, there are 3 tabs. There's the enrollment form on the first tab, and then there's a tab for the PSO calendar and a tab for pay rates in the state. So when you guys are filling the form out, as we go to the next tab here is an example of those. So when you click to those, this is what you'll see. And let's go to the next slide here. So when you're filling these out, we are asking that you guys include your sponsor name, so organization name, your grant number, candidate name, the application ID you can get from that VISTA member's application, their email, and then the purpose code is going to be whether they're a cost share, a standard, a grant VISTA, and so forth. The definitions for each of the purpose codes is on the spreadsheet. You're going to indicate which PSO they're going to, the start date and end date of their service year, so not including the PSO dates, whether they're new or re-enrolling, if they're relocating, and relocating for VISTA is relocating more than 50 miles from their home of record. Whether or not they're cost share, and whether or not a car was required. You're also going to, actually I'm going to go back real quick, you're also going to, as you see there, indicate their pay plan. Luckily right now, everybody in Wisconsin's on the same pay plan. But if that ever does change in the future, we would send out an updated form for you guys, but it's important to be indicating the appropriate pay plan for VISTAs. VISTA leaders would be different. Yes.
It's 973 for everybody, but there's a B code and a C code. Did I mess that up?
No. India just made a good point. So everybody's getting paid the same amount right now, but a correction of what I just said is there actually are two different plan levels that are currently the same amount. They used to be different. It is good to indicate whether it's a C or a B. You'll see your county on the pay rates tab, and that's the one you're going to want to do. Because if that ever does change in the future, there could be a cost of living increase that VISTA releases where one pay plan could go above the other. So it's important to pay attention to that. And it's broken out by county. If you ever have questions, contact Nicole, India, or I, and we'd be happy to talk through with you. What's important is it's the location of where the VISTA member is serving. So if the site address is in County A, but they actually live in County B, it's County A that should dictate their pay rate. On the second half of the form on the right side, you'll see there were tabs where we ask you guys, indicate the site, especially for multi-site projects. So where is the VISTA member going to be serving? What county are they in? What's the issue area? And we're just looking for the 4 big ones, the focus areas. So economic opportunity, education, veterans and military families, or healthy futures. So what is the primary focus for the project? You may have multiple focuses, but tell us what's the predominant one. And then we ask for the site supervisor's information. So who will be the direct site supervisor, first name, last name, and the site address for where the member is serving. I'm going to hand it over to Nicole to share some tips and best practices around the new app packs.
All right. So, just make sure that you review the VISTA terms, conditions, and benefits with the candidates prior to enrollment. Find a number of opportunities to do this. I believe you guys got a copy of a candidate cheat sheet that you can use. It's just important that the VISTAs know what exactly they're getting themselves into over the next year. So when it's clear that what's required of service, what they're actually getting paid, the sooner you get that out in the open, the better chances are that the VISTA is going to stick around long term. So you can do this during the screening process. You can send this out to candidates prior to interview. You could include this in an offer letter. Best practice would be to have the VISTA sign off on it along with agreeing to accept the position so that it's very clear to them that these are the benefits and the requirements that they are agreeing to in taking this position. Another best practice is consider creating a welcome packet to send out to the VISTA between the time they've been offered the position and PSO. It's an excellent way to keep the VISTA engaged during that long period between the time that they get offered the position and attend PSO. And it also is a great way to start the orientation process ahead of time. You can include information about your project, the organization, the community resources, such as information about applying for government assistance. You could send them a great agency t-shirt or pin. Put together a list of possible apartments that are reasonable for the VISTA. That's a good way to help them find housing options ahead of time. You could consider using Google Maps to map out apartments, organization location, bus stops, just to give the VISTA a sense of where they're coming and how everything's kind of situated. Also, consider providing a contact list to your VISTA of previous or currently serving VISTA members. So I would check with the VISTA members before passing out their contact information, but it would be a great way for your VISTA to ask questions of those that are or have served in your community about what it's like to work for your organization. Ask more questions about providing service and what it's like to live as a VISTA in your community. It's also a great way for them to make contacts, pool resources, consider living as a roommate with another VISTA who's serving at the same time they are. So the more you can do to make them feel welcome and comfortable, the better their experience is going to be over the next year. And then I'm going to give it back to David to talk a little bit about on-site orientation.
All right, awesome. So we're going to jump on to the next topic here and hold questions either to the chat bar or when we finish up. India mentioned we've got about 20 minutes to go, so we'll keep it quick. So the next topic we're going to chat about is now you've got your VISTA member, signed up, enrolled, they're going to PSO. When they get started, how do we create a really positive and strong experience as they get onboarded to the organization and the project that they're going to be working with? So to kick it off, I wanted to ask a couple of our project sites to share some examples of their on-site orientation and training plans. What's worked well for you? What's been a challenge? What's been a lesson learned that you would want to share with other projects? I've reached out to a couple of our projects to get a couple started here. So I'll hand it first off to DPI. Christine, would you like to share a little bit about pros and cons from your guys' OSOTs over the years?
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. So we have multiple types of practice databases. So something that's worked well for us is first trying to use specific things in their on-site orientation training plan. One thing that we require also is included in introduction and so we like that in the organization. It'll be listed and give a little brief overview of the project right away. So that has worked well. I think a challenge is just trying to get all the sites to do their OSOT. We give them examples of activities, different things that they should be doing, which helps, but a lot of times when they don't actually, put in their own I think lessons learned is just that having, one or two required activities for on-site has been really helpful, and just helping the site supervisors do that process.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Christine. Rahama and Sve, would you guys like to share a little bit about OSOTs and how Habitat's done them and some of the things that's worked really well for you guys, or any challenges or lessons learned?
Well, what I just add is so we have our sites write their own individual plans, and then we can have a checklist of what we require them to do, as if you have the requirements for us. But then we also add a few of our own, because we're a statewide organization, and we actually do a first week webinar with all of our VISTAs right after they come in. It's another time to talk about, food share programs, those kind of individual things, but we're sending information along down the way. And now it's an opportunity to talk with the VISTAs about it. So we kind of add, as a support organization, we add to each OSOT from each village.
Awesome. So you guys kind of have a two-layer. There's being part of the Habitat for Humanity Wisconsin Vista Project, OSOT, and then there's the local OSOTs at each of your host sites.
Absolutely.
Cool. Great. Well, thank you both for sharing examples. Before we move on, anybody else want to share just anything that's worked really great or has been a lesson learned that they think would be great to share with the group? All right, cool. I'm going to move on to the next slide. So why are OSOTs important? We really think this is a key factor to the success of a VISTA member and the project. We want to set up the foundation, help provide the direction, and help develop the skills that will allow VISTA members to be successful. So how you set the tone in the beginning, like Nicole was sharing with the welcome packet ideas and everything, it can really set the tone. I think your OSOT is a key time to set the tone of your project. And investing time in the project now can really increase its chances for success down the road. We really look at dividing the OSOT into 5 themes. So to make it helpful, we've broken it down into getting to know the organization, getting to know the workplace, getting to know the project, getting to know the community, and then setting the stage and getting to know your VISTA member. So on the next couple slides, we'll look a little bit closer at each of these. So the first one, getting to know the organization, is pretty straightforward. This is the opportunity, thinking big picture with the VISTA member. It's important to lay that foundation, and we want the VISTAs to gain a strong context of who you are as an organization. And then how does their project focus fit into that? Besides just what they're working on their project, they're also going to be ambassadors in the community of your organization. So it's important for them to know the basics of the big picture. What's the mission, the history, what programs do you guys operate in the community? Even if that's outside of what that VISTA member is doing, it's good to have the context of that. Do you serve specific focus areas? Do you have target demographics? Do you only serve a certain geographic area? Do you guys have a standard elevator speech? Something that you hope all of your staff and volunteers are communicating to the community about your organization. So you're going to want to review that kind of stuff with your VISTA member as they get started. Who does the VISTA member need to know within the organization? What's your staff structure, your leadership? How are you going to introduce them to your fellow staff or to your volunteers or your community partners? Christine shared that she expects all of her sites to introduce their members at a staff meeting. That's a great way to do that. But what are the other ways to do that? So thinking that through. How does your organization support itself? Where's most of your funding come from? Sometimes it can be helpful to know, are we mainly a grants-based organization? Do we mainly depend on individual giving? How does that shape our values and what we're doing as an agency? Then getting to know the workplace. This is more of some like the logistical stuff. So it's important to think about how am I going to orient the VISTA member to understanding kind of the nuts and bolts of being a part of our team and working in our workplace. A lot of this stuff is like, this is like week 1 items. So while your OSOT might cover a couple weeks where you're orienting the member to the project, the community, and the organization, I would say a lot of these things and getting to know the workplace you're going to be wanting to do in the first couple days. So, going over the basics of the workstation, helping them get set up with their computer, phones, voicemail. Is there a printer? Do they need to install the printer on the computer? Has email been set up for them? Do you have a specific expectation around email signature or branding? How do they access, like a shared contact list if you guys have one of those? This is a great time to spend some time with the VISTA member around the building. So where should the VISTA member park? Is there a kitchen in the, is there a fridge? Do you guys not have those? What kind of things should they know? Are there bathroom keys? Is there an emergency plan in the event of a building emergency? How does that work? Who should they call? Things that you would expect your staff to know as well. And then what are the policies and procedures of your agency? Do you guys have a handbook? Do you have an employee handbook? Although VISTA members are not employees, they are a member of your team, and it is important that you guys orient them to how you expect members of your team to act and what the basic procedures are. There's a couple things where VISTA's policies might trump some of your agency policies, but for the most part, it's important that they have a good foundation and understanding in that too. So go over those kind of things like what's the dress code? What's the expected work hours? When's our holiday schedule? How do they request personal or sick time? What's the travel policy, or is there a reimbursement policy for expenses? Things like that. We're going to keep going quickly through these other ones. So getting to know the project, this is a key part of the OSOT. So you're going to want to spend some time with the VISTA member to break down the VISTA assignment in specific. So bring out the VAD. Spend some time talking with the VISTA member. What did they learn at PSO? What questions do they have about the VAD? Talk about the big picture and how this project falls into the overall agency goals. What's the background? How did it come about? Perhaps a year ago, this was part of a collaborative community summit, and the top concerns that were raised is what stemmed this project. So it's really good for members to have that behind-the-scenes background. Is this year 2 on the project? What did year 1 do, and what should this VISTA be focusing on building on top of? What's the community need? So if you guys are launching a tutoring program, what are some of the community statistics, literacy rates, math rates, things like that, that the VISTA members should know that would be important to inform them about the work that they're going to be doing. And then take some time to walk through the VAD, talk about the different objectives, the activities. That way you've got a good understanding that the VISTA member has a good understanding of the work that you guys are setting out to do. And it's important to set up a follow-up time. So don't have this as a one-off conversation, but have it as an initial conversation, and then set up a time. It could be a couple weeks out, could be a month out, to follow up and revisit this. After the members got a stronger context of what you guys are doing, revisit the VAD and walk through it again to see if any new questions have come up. Then you want to take some time to get to know the community. This is important for VISTAs that are new to your community, but also for those that might be local. For those who just relocated, it's important to remember that this is an adjustment period for them. So if you put yourselves in their shoes, think about what it's like to move to a new community. You'll want to cover the basics, like where the grocery stores are, maybe affordable thrift stores, places to visit, where the medical centers are, things like that. Think about the financial stresses of moving for those new VISTA members. They're on limited living allowances, and that relocation benefit doesn't come until after they've started. So it may be tougher for them in those first couple weeks to make ends meet, and it can be helpful to check in and try to provide some support to community resources for those VISTA members when they're getting started. For those local VISTAs, it can be important because maybe the part of the community that you guys are serving is different than the part of the community that they're familiar with. They may have grown up here, but maybe on the other side of town. So it can be really helpful to learn more about the history, the culture, and the demographics of the community that you're serving. And finally, I think this last section is really important, and sometimes we breeze through it, but it's important to get to know the VISTA and to really set the stage for the project. So it's important to take some time to get to know what are their ambitions and goals for the year and how can you support that. I think that really shows a VISTA member up front that you value what they're bringing to the project, but also value the opportunities that they have to grow. And that's going to help build a positive dynamic in the service year. Also, what can be really important is talking about their strengths, their weaknesses, talk about your strengths and your weaknesses. What's the differences in your work styles, communication styles? How do they like feedback? What's your management style? What are your expectations? Do you like to have a brainstorm conversation, or do you like somebody to come to you with kind of a proposal and then showing that they've done their homework and then you just get to review it? So it really can be important to discuss those kind of things up front. I feel like when we don't have those conversations, it's a lot more likely that there could be some underlying conflict that can develop around different styles or different expectations that can lead to issues down the road. So if you talk about that stuff up front, it can really help create a strong foundation. And even talk about your pet peeves, what really grinds your gears, so you guys can avoid those. So I'm going to hand it over to Nicole for some tips and best practices, and then we're going to take a couple minutes and wrap things up for you guys.
All right, so when planning your on-site orientation, start planning early. Know exactly what you want to prepare and what you want to cover with the VISTA. Make sure you outline the who, what, when, where, and why. Think of other people you can bring in to help you with this on-site training. Your VISTA could spend time with your office manager, HR people, program directors, community partners, clients, board members, donors. Don't feel like you have to be the only one who's responsible for these on-site orientations. Change up the activity so the VISTA doesn't spend the first 2 weeks just reading policies and handbooks. Consider taking them on a tour or scavenger hunt around your community. Have them shadow a volunteer or client staff for the day to get a sense of what you do. Provide a community snapshot for your VISTA to review. Check with your local government, United Way, community action agencies to see if they have some sort of community assessment your VISTA can take a look at. Be intentional about welcoming your VISTA to your team. Make sure that they feel like they're really a part of your organization. Team building can and build relationships, strengthen communication, improve trust, and help the VISTA feel more comfortable in the new setting. Think about sending out a welcome email introducing your VISTA to all your staff. Talk about the on-site orientation during your interview. Strong VISTA candidates are likely considering many positions. So if they know that training is a big part of your plan, that might make your site shine above others. Send your training or your pre-service or your OSOT out to the VISTA before PSO so they get a sense of what they're going to get to learn and what they're going to get to know in their first few weeks. Consider giving your VISTA time to settle in the first few weeks. It's allowable for you to give them some work time to apply for government benefits, leave to head out to an office, complete paperwork for the corporation, call the VISTA hotline. The first few weeks are going to have a lot of stuff overwhelming them, so if you give them that flexibility to get caught up, they'll be much more focused. And then debrief the VISTA throughout the process. You can identify additional training needs or ways you can improve that for the next VISTA coming along. All right, so we're going to wrap it up. I'll let David finish up with any questions that you guys might still have.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you all for hanging on through all those slides. We're excited to go through the info with you. So at this point, any questions that anybody has, we can open it up for any Q&A.
All right. For anybody that could not access the Skype, there was one question about how does the VISTA find out that they need to complete the V81 and other forms before PSO? When we send their information to the VISTA member service unit, they will automatically send an email to the VISTA to complete that paperwork before PSO. But we will also notify you that they're enrolled in PSO, so that'll give you the heads up to contact your VISTA about that paperwork.
Just one more thing, everybody, and that is that this is the first in a series of webinars that we'll be doing with sponsors. Next month in October, Nicole is going to be leading one on VADs and service opportunity listings. So we'll put out a doodle about that. The other is that I want to do a subsite supervisor webinar with those of you who have subsites. And I'd really appreciate it if you would send me a collection of their email addresses. We'd love for you to attend that one as well. But we really would like to do some of the basic stuff with subsites. I know that you all have done some of those kinds of things, but we're trying to standardize the trainings and to make sure everyone has the same information. So if you would send me in the next couple of days all the emails of your subsites, we'd sure appreciate that. Any final questions or comments? All right, well, thanks very much for spending time with us. And as always, any questions, look us up. We'll look forward to talking to you next month as well as in between individually. Thanks so much, everybody.
There's like a mass hang up there.